Welcome, IndyCar fans, to a special edition of the IndyCar Report with Elijah Poe. Elijah and I joined today by Dave Chanley and Tipton Tribune and Elwood Call Leader sports editor Michelle Garmon to recap and react to the Grand Prix in Detroit today. One of the best road course races I think I've ever seen, and on those tight streets was just fantastic. That's one of the topics we're going to talk about among many things. The other thing, of course, obviously the continued greatness of Alex Palou. 11 wins in the last 22 races for him now, but also the new quick trigger yellows, which seemed kind of like an infantile response from the series to the drivers. It's like, all right, you wanted a yellow? Here you go. Some impressive runs and, of course, some really bonehead moves and a couple of former teammates who ran into each other a couple times, maybe intentionally. We'll talk about that as well. Welcome, Elijah, Dave, and Michelle. Start with Elijah. Where do you want to start on all that stuff? How good the race was or how great Alex Palou is?
I think just in general, just how fantastic that race was. You know, I think a lot of people complained at first, and myself being one of them, about the teams having to run 2 red tires on street races. I thought it was just another rule that IndyCar threw in there. It's another facet that they're trying to gimmick this race out. But strategies throughout this whole race and the racing throughout, literally up until lap 100, it didn't even matter that Palou had a 3-second lead because there were probably 15 battles going on at any point in time. Palou led 71 laps and was obviously the car to beat today. There's no doubt about that. But top to bottom, what a just absolutely fantastic IndyCar race we got. From a course that hasn't provided some of the best racing in years, but this might be one of the best street courses that IndyCar has ever ran.
Last couple have been really good at Detroit.
I think it was a very good race because, as you mentioned, Elijah, there was just a lot of battles going on in the back, in the middle, in the back. And early on, there were 4 cars before the first pit stop. And, of course, they got around Palou, which gave everybody some hope. It was false hope, I think, but gave everybody some hope.
Well, this race was definitely in doubt. Alex Palou ended up winning, kind of going away, but this race was without a question in doubt throughout the race. Turns out he's just better than everybody, though.
Something we already know. We already knew, right? I thought it was a great race. Competitive. I love the tight turns, the bumpiness of the road. It had to be extremely tiring and painful and fatiguing for Alexander Rossi and Josef Newgarden, both who were wearing braces on their boots or cast braces on their feet on a broken foot. And go into it, and I think when Alex Palou is on the pole or starts up front, I think you just go into it thinking it's going to be his race to lose, or is there going to be something bad luck? But I just think when he is up front and out front, he and that team are just so good that he just becomes an overwhelming favorite.
Elijah, I thought the move of the race was when he was in second place behind Will Power, and he got passed by Scott McLaughlin and just let Lundgaard go by him as well and just said, let those guys battle it out for now. I'll have my time. I'm not going to waste my tires battling for first place, second place, third place right now. I'm just going to bide my time. And that's exactly what he did. And they played it perfectly like they always did. And then the last pit stop went in as soon as they possibly could when they were certain they could make it to the end. That paid off as well. Not only do they have the best driver, they're also, and again, we heard on the radio that he was part of the strategy as well with the tires. It's just like a perfect combination, and he's winning the championship.
It was a fantastic move by Ganassi to call him in. But I do think that, Kirkwood maybe could have won this race if it hadn't gone yellow, but that's the risk Andretti and Kirkwood knew they were taking because there are going to be yellows at Detroit. It's too bumpy. The cars are too close together. It's just going to happen. And I think that move by Santino on VK, which brought out that yellow, was a pretty boneheaded move. VK got past him cleanly, and Santino just kind of swept the attenuator back out of VK and spun him around. It's kind of like these what ifs, where what if the yellow didn't come out? What if this? What if that? But at the end of the day, Palou still is able to capitalize on what is handed to him.
I think we ought to, Palou's good. Let's talk about Kirkwood. Great race for Kirkwood. I think it was a great race for him. It was a great race for Graham Rahal. And Pato O'Ward probably did as good as he could do, which he always does as well as he can, but it's usually a 4th or 5th place finish. Lundgaard was a factor early, but finished 5th.
Well, let's talk about Josef Newgarden, who just had an incredibly good day for the position he was in. He clearly didn't want to have anything to do with any contact and was letting cars go by. Look, I'm just going to let him go. I don't want to have anything to do with this. And still managed the top 10 finish in a car that clearly wasn't as good as the top cars. I have no idea how he did. I bet we saw him get past 25 times on track and he finished in the top 10.
Greg, I agree. I think Josef Newgarden may have had one of the best drives, because you could tell that that team's strategy was, let's not make a mistake. And when I say that is, let's not make a mistake to where our driver ends up in the wall and maybe injured more to where we might not have him next week. And I thought he was very smart. I thought the team was smart. Just go out, don't get aggressive. Good pit stops, good strategy. We want to finish the race and see where we stand at the end, and they stood pretty darn good at the end. You mentioned Rahal, Dave. I think his teammate, I think Louis Foster had a really good race. I think Louis Foster is really coming on of late. I think he's starting to find his stride this year as the season goes on. And I think Rahal, Letterman,
he's a talent, man.
They have to be very proud of what their drivers did today.
You know, I remember us talking yesterday and saying that Rahal would have a fantastic day if both of those cars just somehow finished either 9th or 10th. But coming out with the result with Rahal up in 3rd, for his 2nd podium of the year.
3rd.
Louis Foster, 3rd podium of the year. Yes, I forgot. My goodness, what a year from Rahal it's been.
Yeah.
And then Louis Foster finishing in 7th, it's unbelievable. But on Newgarden as well, he said after the race, if Penske wanted to win the race, they would have put in Felipe Nasr because he was running his own race. And I honestly think Josef Newgarden needs to start doing that more often, because we know he's going to be a factor on the ovals every single time. If he can keep on notching anywhere from a top 5 to top 10 finish, is he going to win the championship? Maybe not. Is he going to be there at the end? Most likely.
I want to touch on Louis Foster and his teammate, and we're going to get to the boneheads today because there were even more of those, I think, than impressive runs. We'll get to his team, but never did it cross my mind that Louis Foster would be the best driver on that team through this. I mean, you could argue that Graham has been too, but Foster's been consistent, impressive. Every week you think, oh, hey, there's Louis Foster. I think he's going to be a guy in this series.
I would say he reminds me of somebody who was on that RLL team in the same car, Christian Lundgaard, a young Christian Lundgaard who was on that RLL spot and had some impressive finishes. Of course, he was able to win with RLL. Is that in the cards for Louis this year? I don't think so, but maybe a podium. I wouldn't be super shocked. This is a guy who was on the pole last year twice, so we know he's a great talent. And if he keeps on stringing together results like this, I could see him really fitting in that 3rd seat at Air McLaren right next to Lundgaard.
Now, wait, don't forget, I think Nolan Siegel is making headway and is trying to hang on to that seat.
He's definitely got the backing for it. There's no doubt about that.
He's been better.
Yes. Yeah. And, he's under Tony Kanaan's tutelage. He's really taken a liking to this kid, and he's doing all he can for him.
He is young. That is something to point out. You're right about that. The youngest driver on the grid by far, and my gosh, he looks it.
All right, I want to talk about the boneheads of the day because there were a lot. But before we get to that, we need to talk Will Power and Scott McLaughlin because that was pretty ugly. And I'm not 100% convinced that McLaughlin didn't run into power intentionally twice.
Greg, I at least once when I was looking at that, I was like, oh man, I'm not so sure that that's not intentional. And I really hated it that happened and everything. And I guess there was some justice because Power ended up out of the race after he ended up in the wall, that McLaughlin also had something go wrong and he faded back into the field instead of getting a podium finish. But I will say this real quick. I thought Power getting pushed into the wall like he did, I thought he did a great job of getting that race car to pit lane. Not making it worse and getting it to pit lane.
Best day by far for Will Power. It was a shame to have it ruined.
I agree with that. I think Will Power had a great race today. He really was a factor. He was a factor from the beginning. He was a factor in the middle. He was. And yeah, you can look and say, wow, bad luck. Wow, I don't know. Those two have gotten together, and it was, I'm sure they were going to chat after the race.
Yeah, there's no doubt about that. It is a shame for Will Power, who, kind of had the same thing happen to him at Phoenix this year with Christian Rasmussen. Even though that was more Will Power's fault here, it's a shame it had to happen because both guys were running so strongly, and I would love to see them be in that top 5 battle, throwing it in with Rahal and Pato Award. That would have been just incredible. It's a true shame. I think Detroit can cause incidents like this, but for it to happen more than once is pretty telling that these guys are going to have a chat.
I think in talking about the incidents in Detroit, before we talk about the bonehead moves, which, we can call them bonehead moves, that is such a tight place. When you try an over and under, you're inches away from connecting with somebody and spinning them almost every time you try it. I'll give them the last one by Alexander Rossi. There was no way. It was just give him a foot more space and he would have been fine. Ferrucci's was probably a little bit more egregious, but even then, I don't think anything was intentional by Ferrucci. I think they just misjudge when you're trying to get around a guy. And that's good racing when you're trying and you're going high, then you cut low. There's going to be some times when you just misjudge it. And I think that happened a few times today.
Well, I think you'll notice that it wasn't the best drivers who were doing that typically. So I want to do this segment then. Rank the knuckleheads today. Who had the worst moves of these three? Ferrucci had a couple. Schumacher, awful incident, just looked incompetent. And Simpson may be what Dave is saying, but I didn't see that happen into the really good.
I'll go first of all with Schumacher, because Malukas had pulled a rabbit out of the hat and had put himself in contention, put himself in the top 4, and all of a sudden he just got that was just bad driving. Schumacher was a rookie today. That one was it did not bode well for his future the way he drove today.
Yeah, I have to agree with David. When you look at the Santino incident, it was pretty nasty, but the fact that Schumacher just kind of ran Malukas wide, I mean, that was a move I would make on a friend iRacing online. I mean, that is just,
That's right.
What are you doing? You have got to make that corner, and you can't ruin somebody else's race by doing that. It was a really, really bad move, and it really just made him look like he wasn't really up to par with some of the drivers in IndyCar, which is a shame because we talked about at length how we want him to be competing. It'd be great for the sport, and he probably could have gotten a top 5 finish if he would have stayed there because, I mean, he was up in 3rd.
Okay, guys, I'm going to go with Ferrucci because this is a pattern with Ferrucci on street courses or road courses, and he's an experienced racer. There's no excuse for that. Schumacher is, granted, I know he's done the Formula One, which is road courses, and but he's still a rookie in this circuit and still getting used to these cars.
Clearly.
And these drivers. However, Ferrucci's been around, and this is just something that on a road course, especially a tight road course, to look out for. That's why if I'm a driver, I don't want to be anywhere in the vicinity of Ferrucci on a road race course.
He's become a menace.
That's a good point too, Michelle. It's a shame.
I'm just surprised by Schumacher because other Formula One drivers have just kind of come in and picked up these cars right away. Either it was just the Indy 500 like Fernando Alonso, who, granted, is an all-time great. He's far greater talent than Mick Schumacher, but Grosjean was about the same level of driver as Mick Schumacher in Formula One. He came in and picked it up right away. He was competitive from the second race. I'm stumped by Schumacher.
I just feel bad for Malukas because starting at the back of the pack, he was going to have a top 5 finish, and that just shows how great of a team and racer he is. And then he had absolutely nothing he could do to avoid Schumacher on that particular situation.
He couldn't, and it was a really bad driving error by Schumacher. And I felt bad for Malukas too because he had a lot of bad luck yesterday and had to start so far back. And he and his team had done such a nice job of moving him up into position for top 5 and even a podium finish. And then to have that happen, that's a tough day for him. I really think Rossi, he had a couple of incidences and then he went out, and I'm not going to blame him or anything. I just wonder how much that foot. I do too. I think
on the list.
He probably should have.
I didn't add him to the list because I think he had a little bit of an excuse. The same way
Newgarden did today. Survive this week, get a little healthier, because when you're battling and bumping, I mean, it's not like they can take pain medication, because the last thing you want to be is loopy out there on the race course, and that is a bumpy street course. So I am sure by the end of that race that both he and Newgarden couldn't wait to get out of their cars and get that foot elevated and take something for pain.
That's off to both of them for just driving the race. And you guys earlier mentioned Newgarden. That's probably the most patient race Newgarden's ever driven in his life. And look how it paid off for him.
Yeah. And I'll just say this about Kyffin Simpson because I'm contractually obligated. He might be a fine race car driver, but he does not belong on Ganassi Racing. That is a seat that needs to be taken by a talented driver. Sorry. I'm obsessed with that. I just don't understand why a guy who has 0 results despite his age, I don't care his age, Alex Palou was on the same team at the same age and was winning. So don't give me that. He just doesn't belong, and I don't understand why they continue to give him a ride because he's just not good enough.
Yeah.
Now, Nolan Siegel, I've been saying that about too, and he's proved me wrong. I think he is good enough to continue to give a shot.
A lot of it is the good old U.S. dollar bill sitting in his wallet.
Yeah, no question. Money talks.
Yep. I know.
And I think, talk about somebody who won some money, what a result for the Indianapolis 500 winner. Felix Rosenqvist ending up in 6th today. I did not see that coming out of him. What a drive.
It just shows he is who he is. He's a really good racer. He's a really good race driver. And, he never gets in anybody's way. He drives very professionally and fast. He does a great job. And hats off to him, of course, for winning the 500, but following it up like he did today, that was impressive in my opinion.
Well, not only that, but how about that pit crew? His pit crew has been
nothing else. Meyer
the
Shank
guys
sure
working in
can
the Pittsburgh
hire drivers.
That team have been really good the last couple of weeks too. I mean, you don't have guys in the pits getting your job done. Their job's done. It's kind of hard to go ahead and move all the way up like they did. So Meyer Shank has done a really good job with Rosenqvist's team, and Rosenqvist is probably he's that right kind of driver. He's aggressive. He's a more talented, aggressive driver than Ferrucci.
He's a true veteran at the end of the day.
Also have hats off to Armstrong. He was doing well till he didn't. I know that sounds like a goofy statement, but Armstrong, I think he's going to be a racer. I think he is going to be a race car driver too.
Yeah. Well, he's technically on lease with Chip Ganassi Racing. He's still under a Ganassi contract, just racing at Meyer Shank Racing. So, I think when you look at that seat that Kyffin Simpson has, we know Armstrong's obviously been there before, but who's to say it won't work?
Yeah, good point. Well, also I want to say one more thing, and I've spoken about Malukas. My hat's off to Malukas on how he has handled this past week after a heartbreaking loss. I think the young man, starting with the Victory Awards dinner, he has been nothing but classy, and I think that he's gained me as a fan. He has gained me as a fan, and I think he has gained a ton of other people as a fan just by the way he has handled himself.
Other than he drives for Penske, I hope he wins next week.
It will.
Yeah, next week, night race at Gateway.
Oof.
Man, it's going to be awesome.
It's going to be.
The street courses are great. but
Another
the ovals,
fantastic
ooh,
race.
Man.
I
Especially
really believe I'm
Gateway.
looking forward to it.
Should be fun. Yes. Gateway's always good.
And we'll talk about the great drives and the knuckleheads again next week.
Can't wait.
Don't forget, everybody, Elijah and I will be back on Thursday for the IndyCar report. We hope Dave and Michelle can join us as well. And then we will be back on, I guess, Saturday night. That's a late qualifying and then a late race, which is fantastic. I loved the late Sunday last week. It just felt right. It felt like Sunday night football kind of event. And we'll see how they do again this week. Thanks so much, as always, to Elijah, Michelle, and Dave for joining me. Thank you so much for listening. Sorry at the very end there. Michelle's audio got a little off. Our editing software is fantastic. Every once in a while it has a little hiccup. There wasn't too much there, but sorry about that. And thank you so much to producer Susie for being the best producer ever. And we will be back on Thursday with our regular IndyCar report. Please join us. Oh, and please do us a huge favor. Share this podcast with an IndyCar fan in your life. Help us spread the word that the Central Indiana Sports Report is talking about what Central Indiana sports fans are talking about every single day. Last thing, the Central Indiana Sports Report is a product of ITG Media, and I love you, Susie.